Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun, and I'm here with my good colleague,
David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine. Hope you all are doing all right today.
Well, I'm doing great here, David. We're going to be talking about a movie that I absolutely love. It's been it's a huge favorite of mine. Grew up watching it many times when I was a kid, and just it's fantastic. It's the movie Hoosiers with Gene Hackman in it, and it's more than just basketball. It, it it's about people and about redemption and heart and spirit, and it's a really feel good movie. So you don't have to be a sports fan to be in love with Hoosiers, and I'm kind of a quasi lukewarm sports fan. Sometimes I'm a bandwagon sports fan, but I'm not a good sports fan. But
Yeah, I completely concur with that thought, Andy. I myself am very much not a sports fan. I'm not a major fan of basketball, even less so for football. I know that's antithesis of several other Texans out there, but Hoosiers is a very well done movie. It's a very well acted movie. It's well directed, well edited. It is one of those sports dramas that, yeah, while it kind of follows the formula pretty consistently, it's still very exciting. It's still very fun. It gets you wrapped up into everyone's emotions, and it really gets you going. The story follows a basketball coach named Norman Dale, who wanders down to the town of Indiana in 1951 to train these, ruggedy little basketball players to be, really good at their game. Gene Hackman plays Norman wonderfully. I heard him deliver some of his lines, and I just remembered his roles in other movies like Superman and Unforgiven, and just he delivers it with that sense of charisma, that sense of unflinching snarl that just it makes you really like Hackman. He possesses a really strong quality about him that really makes you admire him as an actor.
Well, he really commands the scene that he's in, and just brings kind of everybody together in a moment. I would say some of my favorite parts of that are when he's when he's in the locker room talking with his players, and he's giving an inspirational speech, and or he's his relationship with the town he's in is the fictional town of Hickory in Indiana, and like most small towns, he's really bucking the norm. He's doing things differently, and they obviously don't like that. So, and Gene Hackman basically doesn't care. He's going to do it his way, and Norman Dale's going to do it his way, and he doesn't care. He's there to teach them a game of basketball, and it's his way or the highway.
The beginning, yeah, and I agree with all of that. The beginning of the movie definitely has a very strong Footloose kind of vibe to it, right? Like it has this whole, what? You're dancing? That's not accepted in a small town. And this whole town rebellion sort of thing. Like, this is our way. You can't ruin our culture, But Gene Hackman,
you can't kick us out of watching practice.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole movie, but Gene Hackman, he really is kind of a strongly planted tent pole in this movie. He doesn't care what the kids think about him. The adults, even less so. He's a very strong, resolute character in this movie, and I think that's why he's so good in the central role. Like the movie really does kind of center on him.
Well, one scene I think that really shows that is that when he first gets there, it's his first practice, and they have this, Jim Bob from the town running the team, and they're doing shooting exercises and stuff like that, and he's like, well, I thought I'd do them 20 on and 20 off, then 20 on. He's like, your coaching days are over, Jack. And he's like, give me your whistle and get out. And then he's stomping off, and he has the ball. He says, by the way, can you leave the ball? And it's like, wow.
Yeah, he like I said, man, that's the Gene Hackman charm, man. He's really good at just delivering those lines with such dryness. It makes you fall in love with him. He's such a great character in this movie. Another one that is a little less under the spotlight, but I think is still just as great a character, is Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, he plays Shooter in the movie.
Huh?
He plays Shooter in the movie.
Shooter, exactly. Yeah, Shooter in the movie is this kind of typecast alcoholic,
Talent drunk kind of character.
Yeah, exactly. And again, typecast for sure, but he does have a really tragic dynamic. He has this sloppiness to him that's just kind of clumsy and embarrassing, but at the same token, great sports analysis. Like he knows the town, he knows the team, he really knows what their strengths are, and really in several scenes he guides not just Dale but the Hickory basketball team as well. I found those scenes to be really empowering despite the obviously flawed character he is.
Well, what I thought was cool is Shooter is actually the father of one of the players on the team, and Dale is able to look beyond who he is on the outside, who by the world standards is basically a loser, and he sees that inner gem of goodness in him, and basically kind of challenges him to make himself better and say, hey, if you do this for me, if you get off the alcohol, if you get off the drinking, you can come work with the team, be an assistant. And to get an offer like that means the world to him, just to be part of that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the characters that I was well, let me backtrack a little bit. I do agree that Shooter had a great relationship with his son, and that dynamic in the movie was very emotional and very captivating. I thought that was a really great element in the movie. One character I saw in this movie that I did not see more of, and I wish I did see more of, was Jimmy Chitwood. He's a character, he's one of the first students Dale actually meets in the movie. He's played by Maris Valanis. He's basically considered, the superstar, right? Like, he's clearly the best basketball player. He's clearly the most talented, gifted, and all this stuff. But after grieving due to the passing of the previous coach, he's like, nope, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm not doing it anymore. And obviously, this is a sports movie, so obviously later on he ends up joining the squad. But the movie doesn't really have a lot of interactions between Coach Dale and Jimmy. I would like to have seen more of those moments. I feel like they had the space to do that, and they didn't really take that opportunity. So I feel like that is a one relationship, one chemistry that is missing in the movie. As you mentioned, the movie is an hour and 50 minutes long. It wastes none of that. I think it is a very tight film, sharply edited. It definitely has a brisk pace that keeps you interested all the way through. But it's one of those rare occasions where I would have liked to have seen more. I feel like whether the movie was 10, 15, 20 minutes longer, you could have accomplished a lot more in that space and be a more fuller movie.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just felt there was maybe a little bit more that could have been, explored in the film. What's interesting about this movie is that it's just a little trivia here for you. It's loosely based on it's the town of Hickory is not real, it's fictional, but it's loosely based on the Milan High School basketball team from Milan, Indiana, who won the state championship in 1954, which had kind of a similar type story. And what's interesting about this film, Hoosiers, is actually in 2001, it was placed in preservation in the Library of Congress and the National Film Registry. So you can actually go to the Library of Congress or watch it online because it's preserved for free, which is really interesting to me.
It is interesting, and I think it definitely deserves that accolade just from the way it wraps you up in these characters, it wraps you up in the sport, their emotions behind it, what it means to them. When I say that it follows the sports formula, it definitely follows the sports formula. You have the coach that the town outright rejects. You have the wimpy players that nobody takes seriously, who the coach then emboldens and strengthens to becoming a state championship worthy team. It's a true rags to riches story that we've seen done before. But I think if you're going to tell the story again, if you're going to tell, this movie again, you need to do it with the gumption and the enthusiasm and the belief in what you're telling. And this movie definitely has that. It definitely believes in its story. It believes in its characters. And I think because it's based off of a true story, that's where a lot of it comes from. It comes from the authenticity of the source material it's deriving from.
Well, I think if purely it was based, I think if it was just purely just focused on just a basketball team and then their drive to the state championship, those movies are a dime a dozen. I can think of a couple of movies like that where, okay, well, those are fun and entertaining to watch. They don't have any really staying power in the long run. Unlike this film, which basketball, yes, that is an element to this movie that makes a good part of it, but it's not what it's all about. It's that human interaction, with the characters, with the relationships, they have, and that's what I think really makes it special. Is just that connection that the audience can identify with these individuals that, well, I know that person. I went to school with that kind of a guy, or I had a coach like that, or I had a teacher like that, or I grew up in a place like Hickory. I mean, people can connect with places or people like that, and I think that's what makes it still just a gem 30 plus years later.
Yeah, it definitely does. It has that small town, kind of homey countryside feel to it that just makes you feel like you're a part of the culture. It doesn't really feel like you're a viewer watching the movie from a screen. You feel like one of the town's residents watching the story play out, rooting for everybody as it goes on. It's a very captivating movie, and it's very well done in pulling you into it.
Well, I think one of my favorite lines, one of the players on the team, he's the, I can't remember his name, but he's the son of the preacher, and the preacher drives the team from town to town in the church bus, essentially. But what I think is funny is Dale is about to put him in the game, and he's takes off his sweats and he kneels and he starts praying, and he says, God wants you on the floor. And, he looks up and smiles. And then a little time later, they show this montage of him going down the court, just breaking, throwing threes, doing all these cool stuff. And he says, Dale looks at him and says, "What happened to you?" And he says, "Oh, I can feel the power of the Lord. I can feel his strength." He says, "Well, keep that in the dribble."
Yeah, exactly. There's so many great moments like that in this movie, man. And that's something I think I love so much about it is it doesn't see its characters as just basketball players. It sees them as people. And you're right. It is such a special element to that movie. It definitely does deserve to be preserved in the National Registry for future viewing.
So, what do you give Hoosiers here?
Strong 8.
I give it a 10.
Wow. I feel like some elements it follows too safely as far as some of the formula and some of the cliches, but it's still a strong movie. I'm not shortchanging it at all, and I'm glad you give it a 10. I'm glad you enjoy it so much to put it up there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week here at the Critics Corner. So if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, criticisms, suggestions of what you want us to see at the box office or from the couch, shoot us an email. I can be reached at Andrew@WaxahachieSun.com, or
I can be reached at David@SouthlakeStyle.com.
Okay. Well, I think that should do it for this week, and we will see you next week here, same time, same place.
See y'all next week. Hoosier!